Arkansas defeats Central Arkansas in a game with more jump balls than a junior high basketball game. I'm Daniel Price. That's Jacob Price. We are breaking down Arkansas's 60-97 victory over Central Arkansas. I will start there. Dude, I've never seen so many jump balls in a college basketball game in my life, especially that first half. It was crazy.
Yeah, that was a circus. I mean, those guys said it, and that one play was sort of exemplary of that whole first half, which was where like people were up on their heads and falling over, and there was about the ball changed possessions about 7 times in 4 seconds. You know,
It just
a
weird,
comedy
like,
of errors.
weird tie ups under the basket. You know, like a guy get a rebound, and then they tie him up, and that was happening on both ends. Like it was happening to Arkansas. It was happening. We were doing it to them. It's just weird. Like at that level of basketball, usually about like, ripping down and like not you don't pull, you rip. You just don't see hardly any jump balls that aren't guys diving on the floor for a ball. That was the most 2 guys standing up resulting in a jump ball. I've not think I've ever seen it in a college basketball game, that many of them.
Well, yeah, and like some of it was obviously sloppy play and stuff, but it was a little bit hard to put your finger on. It was just like one of those 20-minute sections of game that just nobody, it felt like those guys looked like they were first learning how to play basketball a bunch of times. I mean, I don't know if anybody else watched the I could probably not, because it was just the game that was on. Felt like, was it the Browns? There was an NFL game this week where I think it was the Browns and the Ravens, and there was so many turnovers, and it was back to back to back to back, interception, fumble. Oh, here, you want the ball back? Oh, you want the ball back?
Just
I
the
want the ball.
offense and defense just running back and forth off the field.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I saw a montage put together, and I was just like, what the hell is happening? And that's how this game felt in the first half. And Arkansas is a little bit this way all year. They're a little bit hard to, like, I feel like I keep saying this, and it's not very, intelligent observation, but sometimes a game, it's clear what's happening. You know what I mean? Like, they're just missing shots. You watch a game, it's like, well, Steph Curry or whoever their main shooters are went, 0 for 20 from the 3-point line. It's just like they're just missing shots. And then you're like, someone was like, well, they just can't even move the ball. That defense is amazing. Arkansas has been having a lot of games where it's like, I don't know why they're struggling exactly. It's a mixture of a bunch of things. They're not shooting particularly well, and they're turning the ball over. But the weird thing is, and we keep saying this too, but is they'll seem like they're having like a terribly slow half, and you feel like they should be beating the team by 10 to 20, depending on the team. But then, like I said, you look at the score, and it's not as bad or low scoring as games like some Mike Anderson teams in the past, where it's like halftime and it's like we have 28 points. You know what I mean? They still had 41 points at halftime, which is average. I mean, you're going to end up with 80 something points. Like, that's an average college bat. That's not low scoring. But if you just said, how do you feel after that first half? It's like, oh, I feel like we played way below our potential, and we should be beating these guys by 20 points right now.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that you would have 41 points when you had that many jump balls, that many turnovers, crazy amount of turnovers in the first half. Insane. We can talk about the turnovers, which, by the way, they cleaned up the second half. They didn't do that the second half, but the first half, I mean, I'm sure they got lit up in the locker room, but the turnovers, the first half, insane. So you're like, well, you're not going to score a bunch of points if you're turning the ball over. You're not going to score a bunch of points if every 5 possessions there's a jump ball. Definitely not going to score a lot of points if you shoot worse from the free throw line in the first half than I could shoot from the free throw line blindfolded and with my left hand.
Well, that's what I mean. That was one of those things where it's like, are these guys, did somebody sell their soul to the devil or something? Like, the whole team was cursed in the first half with, I mean, it's weird for the whole team to just start missing free throws together, completely, disconnected.
That free throw, they ended up, I think, shooting exactly 50%. Yeah. So they ended up shooting 13 of 26, but they had to shoot 85% the second half to get that up to 50% because it was horrific the first half.
It kind of started with Vanover missing those first two, back to back,
Who
which was
never
like
misses.
which doubled his miss quotient for his entire Arkansas career, in one trip to the free throw line. But after that, yeah, it was like he just started to trend for everybody. Everybody just started missing free throws. That part was weird. It felt surreal. It was like, man, all these turnovers, and like I said, turnovers sometimes do, like, you just get in your head or something. But it's weird that it would just apply then for multiple players, all with wide open free throw shots. That's usually free throw line. I mean, people always say when you're having a bad game, you're having a bad shooting game, you're not performing well, get to the free throw line, calm down, take your deep breaths, watch the ball go through the hoop. You know what I mean? That's supposed to be like a safe space to kind of, oh yeah, I remember how to do this, and to go through your routine and make a free throw. And it's just funny that, not funny, but it's just strange that all of them together just decided to have the same yips at the same time.
Yeah, it's weird. It's also weird when you have a game where you're up by 6 at halftime, which, against UCA is not enough. You should be up by more than 6 at halftime. But you still felt, you're like, we're not losing this game. Like, we're not going to lose this game. But if you just said, like, how much do you think you win by? Well, we were up 6 at halftime, I wouldn't have said, 37.
Right. Yeah, you're not scoring by 31 in the second half.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have thought that. I've been like, I don't know, maybe we end up winning by 20, I guess. But no, I wouldn't have said 37. And that really is what it comes down to, is that the two halves were just completely different. I mean, they cut down those turnovers, they cut down those jump balls, started making their free throws, all that stuff,
turning them over
like crazy. And we turned them over like a lot in the first half too. And I think that's part of the reason why we scored the points we did. I mean, our defense was fine. The defense, we were very harassing. They made some threes.
They shot a little. I think they shot a little bit above their heads that first half. So obviously from the 3-point line. I mean, I don't know how good those shooters are, but it seemed like they shot a little bit. I mean, they shot a pretty high percentage from the 3-point line, which is what kept them so close.
Well, I mean, they ended up shooting, 43%. I mean, they made 9 of 21 for the game. It was higher than that. I mean, so they
had 7 in the first half, right? So they only had
8 in the first half. So they made 1 in the second half. So I mean, at that point, they were probably, I mean, I can look. They were 8 of like 15 or something like that. So they didn't hit them like that in the second half and brought that percentage. And I think we shut down, as they didn't get as many looks. I think most of them probably said, like, hey, no more threes for those guys, and they didn't get to shoot as many. But also, we just didn't do that thing where, like, in the first half, a lot of those turnovers were just they're what I like to call, like, trying to do too much turnovers, where like you like something like is kind of there, but it ain't really there, but you're just going to do it anyway. And you're like, that's not what you should do with the ball right there. There's just some, like, just trying to do too much. Like, you didn't have to do that. So don't do that, and don't turn the ball over. Just some passes that pass is just the degree of difficulty on that pass is just not worth it. Don't do it. Just going for home runs, right?
Well, I can't speak for them exactly, but it looked like in the first 5 minutes, I mean, just from the jump, it looked like we were just so much bigger and faster. And I mean, Tony was just like kind of knocking guys around down there and grabbing balls every, rebounds. And you kind of felt like we got to, we went up by 5 in the first couple of minutes, and it was like, you felt like, okay, this is how it's going to go. We're going to be, outscore them by 5 every 4 minutes, and this will be a 20 to 25 point game. And you kind of felt like, I mean, we've all had that pickup game where that your team is superior and you're playing guys that are all undersized, and you're like, oh crap, we got all the big guys on our side, and you just kind of like grab the ball and flip it up there nonchalantly, and then the next thing you know, a couple of these like guys hit threes, and then you're like, oh, these guys are in the game, and the next thing you know, you're struggling to score because you've just been goofing off a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying they were goofing off, but it, like what you said, it felt like a couple of those layups, they just kind of tried to put weird spin on them and stuff. And
Moody is like, I'm gonna cram this from like a spot that is way too far to try to jump from and dunk it, and you just brick it off the front of the rim.
Yeah, I think there was definitely some. We thought these guys were just gonna. I mean, and like I said, I'm not blaming them, and I'm not saying it's not a criticism. Really, it's difficult to get once you, especially when you go out there and you feel the bodies and you feel that like you're stronger and stuff. It's like it's difficult to keep the same energy as you do against when the guys like you're like, oh, I got to bring this, and if I bring everything I've got, this guy's still as good and better than me. Versus you kind of almost feel like a bully. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it's hard to get over that psychological thing where you're like, we're going to beat you up, even though and I know we're better than you. And it is kind of hard to keep that same energy.
And that is what happened in the second half. I mean, they just beat them. I mean, they did shoot almost 55% from the floor for the game, which just means they're getting a lot of easy shots. I mean,
oh yeah, it was mostly like layups and dunks.
Yeah. I mean, we only hit 4 threes. The turnovers, I think that was just kind of playing fun ball, doing stupid stuff because you thought that we can beat this team whenever we decide to beat them, which I know is not an attitude probably Eric Musselman likes you to have in the first half. The jump balls is just weird. The free throws, that's probably just lack of focus. You're just not focused in. You're not focused up on what you're doing. Showing up expecting to win. But the thing that continues to be like long-term concerning, because none of that stuff is that concerning because they're not going to do that against a team that they think that they have to like show up, to beat. And whatever Musselman yelled in their face at halftime, let them know that they needed to go and put this team away. And that's what they did. But the 22% from the 3-point line is still concerning. I mean, 4 of 18 is not going to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I mean, overall criticism or like, I mean, they're good. They're still a good team. They basically beat the crap out of them. I mean, they almost scored 100 points. And I mean, if you have a criticism that's worrisome is like some teams that you do that to, like if you come out with that same half, they might have a guy like an Isaiah Joe, some team that's like a Missouri Valley team might have an absolute guy that just can get, Curry hot, and Steph Curry, not Indian Curry, but whatever, it works double. But you could mess around and a guy could, bury a team. You might mess around with a team that's a little bit better than that and have that crappy of a first half and miss free throws and turn the ball over. And then you might find yourself in a real struggle. There's no guarantee that you're going to blow them out. But I mean, I don't know, like I said, I would feel more that way if it wasn't for it. Feels like Musselman always does have, he kind of always gets them to understand what they need to understand at halftime or whenever. Like he always, you're never worried that he's not going to see what's going on. You know what I mean? And fix it. So, and like I said, I think it's easy to forget, like you complain about the things that you have at the time. And we've had lots of games where the offense looks clunky, blah, 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 blah. No point guard the ball doesn't move that well. We don't have a lot of shooters, but the scores are still like, I remember Mike Anderson games where we didn't score 50 points the whole game.
Yeah.
And we really haven't had that, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, you just play terrible all game long and you end up with 22 points at halftime, and at the end of the game, it's 48-72 and you get your butt kicked and you just like never got off the ground. You know what I mean? And it feels like that really hasn't happened. And, they've had some clunky starts and stuff, but they've consistently,
they find dirty ways to score when the ball is not going through the hole. They'll just all crash the offensive glass and they'll get putbacks. They'll rebound, or they'll get to the free throw line and start, typically make free throws. They'll find ways to get points on the board, even if it's not pretty. And I think that's that's Musselman instilling that in, that we got to put points on the board one way or the other. I will say, like, things that looked good in this game. Jalen Williams seems like he shows up to play no matter who it is. I mean, you can kind of see it in the way that he rebounds. I mean, he had 13 rebounds in this game in 27 minutes, like, and which is a decent amount of minutes, but not as many minutes as he would normally play. But he was getting up for those rebounds. I mean, when he was in the game, like, nobody else was getting a rebound.
Mm-hmm.
He just that, grab it with both hands, so he was great. His energy was great. And I thought, if I was going to go player of the game, this is where I would go, especially because the first half, when things weren't going great, I thought Stanley Moody was very encouraging the last two games. I mean, if you can post him up on smaller players, which is not hard to do because he's big for his position. If you have him if you have, Williams and Tony and him all out there at once, or Vanover's out there, and he's consistently in that sort of, 3 small forward spot, and he can get a guy in the post. If he's going to hit turnaround mid-range jump shots and he's going to hit pull-up jump shots, I like that as part of our offense for sure. And it does seem, this is now 2 games in a row. And this is, if you go look at his South Dakota film, he can do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that by the time you get into conference play, and as you get into February, I think Stanley Moody is going to be a really important part of this team. You're going to, he doesn't have to do what he did, he doesn't have to get us 25 every night like he did for San Diego, but you got 19 last game, you got 17 this game. He might be a dude that you kind of expecting to get you 15 points a game.
Well, even if it's not 15, even if that's on the high end, every guy that you can have that consistently gives you 8, is better. I mean, obviously this game, the scoring was very distributed. And that's one thing about this team that is a little bit different than teams, even Musselman's teams in the past, is there was times where you felt like we only had 1 or 2 scorers, you know what I mean? And we really don't have like a bunch of pure scorers, but it's in the past you felt like if our scorers, the 2-point guards, don't get, one of them needs to get 28 and the other one needs to get 18, or we're going to lose because everybody else isn't getting more than 6 or 8 points, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas on this team, there's different guys every night scoring between 16 and 20 points. And this one was, like I said, what do we have? 3 different guys that had upper teens.
Yeah, well, Devo had 16. I thought Devo played pretty well as well, by the way, especially in the second half. I mean, he also had 6 rebounds, 3 assists. He was 6 and 9 from the field. That's pretty efficient. So Devo had 16. Tony had 16. Note had 10. Amude had 17. Jalen had 8. So, and that, that's without Likes really doing, Likes had 9. I mean, that's pretty
that's
balanced.
what I mean. The more guys you can have, because like at any given night, Tony could give you 20, mm-hmm. and then or Likes could give you 20, or Amude might give you 20, or obviously Note could give you 30. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's just the more guys that you can have that kind of night, and everybody else can have 8 to 12, 14 points. Like there's all the starters are, if they can all at different times.
You got 7 dudes. I mean, because even Vanover, who, by the way, I was surprised that Vanover only played 9 minutes. Very strange. I thought that was really weird. But we already know that Vanover's led this team in scoring this year. Mm-hmm. There's games where you can do it. So between Vanover and Williams and Davis and Tony and JD and Amude and Likes, you have 7 guys that they can all 7 of those guys can get you some on offense.
And you wonder if that might be a more durable, like a long-term consistent strategy for winning, because like I said, if you have a guy that needs to score, he needs to hit a couple of like 4 threes and score between 20 and 28 points, or you don't really have a good chance. That guy's gonna have bad nights.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Yeah. And like I said,
it just makes your team so easy to guard.
Well, and I kind of felt like we were. I mean, I think if we go back, like part of our criticism was I felt like after the first 3 games, we kind of were that team, like because it was like
just double Note.
Note,
Yeah, we said that. Just
Note
double Note
needed
and make the rest of us shoot, right?
right, and it looked like it was like, well, Note needs to get 25 because everybody else is going to get between 8 and 12 points, and that's not really going to be good enough. But I love the way Note's actually seems like he's being very patient and letting the other, like he's not trying. He doesn't have that thing where you feel like he's disappointed that he's not getting his buckets. You know what I mean? He feels like his defense is great. He's active the whole game, and he doesn't get.
And he's scored in double digits every game without having too many games where he was crazy. But he has had not one game where he hasn't scored in double digits. And most of those games, his shot selection has been acceptable.
And he had 10 this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's for some guys like Note, who, especially when you start out having a bunch of 20-point plus games, there's a lot of those guys that are offensive minded that just get real, like they get down in the dumps if they don't get their looks, you know what I mean? And they feel like they should be the guy that the ball goes through. And I mean, he is the best scorer on the team. And a lot of times those guys' defense is predicated and their energy is predicated feeding off of their looks. You know what I mean?
You got to love this. Note had 10 points. He had 10 points. He had 3 steals, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. But here's the thing. He had 10 points and he only shot the ball 10 times from 3 or anything else. He took 10 shots the whole game. Now, I would argue, I mean, and he only played 26 minutes. Obviously, in a normal game where he's playing 38 minutes, there's going to be more. But, I would almost even be like, yo, you need to take 5 more shots than that, probably. But in this game, he didn't have to. But that says something good about him that he knew in this game, I don't have to. So I'm going to take 10 shots the whole game. That's great. And you're going to have 6 assists. That's great.
And you didn't notice any like energy drop off in his defense or anything. He didn't.
No, he had 3 steals.
Yeah, I thought he played really great. And ultimately you can't learn a lot from that game because, like I said, that second half it felt the way it was supposed to, which is just we like bullied a team that wasn't as good. But I mean, I think that you look at those stat lines, and I love the fact that everybody's getting involved because I mean we've always said this. Like I feel like the bad thing to having guys that are when a team is like, these are our 2 to 3 guys that need to get almost 80% of the looks, and then we have these 2 other guys that are like defensive specialists and just rebound and stuff, is when everybody on the team is involved in offense, it's just energy on defense feeds off of that. And the difference between when you feel like you're just out there, like I'm a screen setter and I'm a rebounder and I'll give the ball and defer, versus when those guys are dropping dimes on you and you're getting to dunk it and get that. It's more fun. And I feel like it makes the whole team play more cohesively. You know what I mean? So I really like that distributed scoring.
Yeah. And I think the thing that we learned this game from and last game as a holdover was I do think early in the year, the first couple of games, I was trying to figure out exactly how Amude fit in. Where is he going to be comfortable? Are we going to figure out how to use him? Because Musselman sometimes has those guys that come in. Vance Jackson was that guy that came in, looked the part, but it just never worked. I mean, I saw Vance Jackson scored 25 points for whatever team he's playing for last night that he transferred to, but it just didn't work. And so there's always that risk with these transfers where, like, I know Amude is a good player. I mean, he's averaging 25 points a game at San Diego last year, or at North Dakota last year. And so, but I was kind of wondering early, like, is this going to work? Because he didn't look comfortable, and I couldn't figure out like where he wanted the ball and stuff. In the last 2 games, I think he was seeing like, oh no, they're figuring it out, and they're like, his role is kind of getting defined. Team that kind of knows where his spots are. I think they even drew up some stuff specifically for him, and that's good because it's another guy, and you want to have 7-8 guys, and you can see how he fits into that picture. And we're going to have some games where it'll be nice to call that timeout and come out of that timeout and draw up that play where you get the mismatch and you got Stanley Moody, 9 feet out, and you run the screen, and you get him in the mismatch, and he gets to pull that turnaround jump shot, and it looks nice.
Yeah. It's not a prototypical team, you know what I mean? Like I still think, but and I'm not sure if that ranking is too high or not, but I still think that they are. I feel like they're consistently, incrementally improving, and who knows how good they could be if they keep gelling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you said, if guys keep finding themselves like a Moody, and they keep, like I said, I still feel like there's several guys. Like Likes is not played up to his full potential. I don't think. We've seen the best, the top level of Note's game either. So you do feel like I don't feel like they're playing way above their heads or something like that. I think they still have.
I think Devo has a lot of room. I mean, you got to remember Devo's a sophomore. I think Devo's still got tons of untapped growth that he's going to expect. One thing Musselman was saying is that Devo he was playing 2 guard last year, and getting to run around and be this energy guy. And the other thing about Devo you have to remember is he's always guarding the other team's best player, and so that's an assignment in itself, right? That I'm sure is the thing that Musselman wants him focused on, is that this is your main responsibility. So he's always guarding the other team's best player, but he's also now playing point guard, and I think you could see improvement, but and I think there's reason to believe that he can figure that out, and by the end of the year that could look a lot better. Not that it looks terrible right now, but you could tell that it's not. He's not done it before, and he's young still, and so he's having to figure out what that looks like. And someone had asked Musselman, "Hey, do you want to see Devo scoring more?" And he's like, "Well, Devo's trying to figure out what it means to be a point guard." And to his credit, I don't know that he cares that much if he scores right now. I think he cares about playing that position well, and he just has to figure out how he's going to do that. And then it will become easier for him to get scoring opportunities once he sort of is really comfortable in that position, I think.
Yeah. Like I said, I think there's a lot to be encouraged about. Still, like I said, a little bit worried about our shooting still overall, but just more like we just don't have a lot of 3-point range that's consistent, which is the name of the game these days. But I still think there's there's a lot of potential, and I don't think they've played their best game yet.
No.
So
one thing you say is there's just a different thing for a Razorback team is they continue to murder people on the glass, and you got to like that. So they're not hitting a ton of threes, but they ain't giving you a lot of second chance opportunities either, and so I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, another in-state game coming up on Saturday against Arkansas Little Rock. So we will be back after that game to cover that. So I'll see you then.
All right, man. See ya.